So I've always been someone who just likes to be busy, right? I get quite bored easily. I have to admit, I get quite bored. And this is why I'm forever learning. This is why, I do my nutrition and then I learn the next thing. And now I'm actually enrolling myself into naturopathy. And, it's the next thing because my brain is always wanting to absorb information. I'm just one of those people that takes on info. So I, as a youngster, actually, I was right into fitness. I was an athlete, actually. I used to train at the AAS for athletics. I was training for the games, but then my parents went bankrupt when I was young. And because those kind of sports things they cost a lot of money until you get, your sponsorships and things from big, companies. So I actually quit, and I probably used, because my parents couldn't drive me over to the other side of town twice a day, every day, take me to different things across the country and different, different competitions and things like that. And maybe I used it as a bit of an excuse too, because sometimes as I said, I got bored easily, but I quit. I quit doing athletics. I was training for the 110 hurdles, and I was actually 200-meter sprint was my most favorite event. But, so I did that, and then I got into fitness because my dad was a fitness instructor. He actually was a Australian fitness champion. Well, he was Australian Fitness Leader of the Year twice when I was younger, and he was actually an international and competitive aerobics champion. Very funny. It's not like the competitive aerobics that you see now. It was really funny, push-ups, smiling, looking to the side, leg kicks, really funny. But anyway, so he was right into fitness. So I got into that really young. I actually started teaching body pump when I was, I did the training when I was 15, but started teaching when I was 16 because you can't teach without insurance and you can't get that till you're 16. And so I was always in fitness. When I was in fitness, I found it, I loved it, but what I found is it's quite competitive, which is really interesting because I look back on it now and think, wow, Arbonne is just amazing. Because when you look at the fitness industry, everyone wants to be the skinniest, the fittest, have the most people in their class, all of these things. So so anyway, I was super young, and then at 20 years old, I got pregnant with my daughter. So I was very young when I got pregnant with my daughter. And at the time, I was so super superficial, I think. I was into, being super fit and super strong. And I didn't actually even know that I ever wanted to have children. But when I got pregnant with her, there was absolutely no doubt in my mind that there was going to be anything other than having her. But what I didn't know was that my partner at the time had depression for many years, because he was one of those very happy-go-lucky people, that really put a lot of positivity on the outside, but on the inside they're dying. And anyway, the short version is, so we can get onto the Arbonne start of it, is when I was 4 months pregnant, he committed suicide. So there I was, 20 years old, on my own, pregnant, when 4 months pregnant. And he was a little bit older than me, so I was only 20. He was in his early 30s, and he committed suicide. So I decided that I was going to do something other than just work at the gym all the time, even though I loved working at the gym. I mean, obviously it wasn't going to bring in the big bucks. So I went, okay, I'm about to have a baby by myself. What am I going to do? So I decided to go to uni. This is very funny. So a lot of you even know how many things I've done. I actually decided to become a school teacher. So I went to uni to do school teaching, and then so that was just after I had her. So when I was, how old was she? She was just 1. Went to uni, decided to be a school teacher, and then met my ex-husband. I'd actually met him a little bit before because he also worked at the gym. Good old Jim. But I met him when we sort of met up a few years down the track. It actually came about because I was a singer, and he knew that because I used to sing in musicals and dance. That was kind of like my creative outlet. And he asked me to, they were looking for a singer in a band. So he asked me to come and have a sing, and I did that, and sort of we met up. And he wasn't the same person I met before. But what happened is, for me, and this is kind of significant for Arbonne, because it kind of, I want to explain to you that you attract the people that are like you and where you are at that time. So you can understand, at that time, I was a single mum. I was very young. I was going, okay, I don't know, I just need to do something better for my daughter because I'm going to have a daughter. and I couldn't save I couldn't save Simon. So Simon was my daughter's father. And I couldn't save him because I didn't know really that he had depression until I got a call once from the hospital saying that he'd overdosed. And I was like, what are you talking about? Overdosed on what? And then it kind of all went downhill from there. So when I met up with my ex-husband, he was very different. And it's because he'd gone off the radar a little bit. Drugs, alcohol, gave himself mental illness. He actually had drug-induced psychosis. So I, at an unconscious level, became attracted to that. Okay. So this is because this is where I was at the time. You know, I obviously had low, so maybe I had a bit of low self-esteem and low self-worth. And I say this on purpose because this is really important for you to understand why personal growth is so important, because you will attract things and situations to you that fit your unconscious, and anything that's going on in your heart, right? So for me, my unconscious was, I couldn't save him. Maybe I'm not good enough, and I had had some good self-esteem on the outside, but obviously not on the inside, or self-worth. So I met him and he had lots of problems. And again, this is when I started doing Arbonne. So the short version here is I married him. I had another daughter, Sienna, whilst I was at uni. When I left, I decided to start doing Arbonne. So I met Trudy, who is my sponsor. Trudy Rich is actually my sponsor. I'm not sure if you know her. A lot of you might. And I met her just through looking at the products at a friend's workshop. And what happened was there, at the time I was at uni, I was still working, very busy, because people that say, oh, I'm so busy, I can't do Arbonne, that's a great excuse to do Arbonne. So I was at uni full time. I was teaching gym classes in the morning in my lunch breaks. I also, by this stage, become a Les Mills trainer. So I'd been asked to be a trainer for Les Mills, so where they teach instructors to be instructors. So I was teaching instructors in body combat and body attack, so training them out. And so I was traveling a lot, and then I was singing in the band on the weekends and rehearsing for that 2 to 3 nights a week. So I was super busy, right? And anyway, so when Arbonne came into my life, I actually had no money. So the other part of this story was I was super busy. He was working on and off because of his issues. And it was actually a very, it was a very domestic violence relationship. So even though I was out there trying to save and help someone, I was in a very physically, emotionally, mentally, and financially abusive relationship. So I didn't have a lot of my own. When I met him, I was living with Jasmine by myself. So I had my own stuff. Yeah, okay, it might have been fantastic furniture and Kmart decorations, whatever. It wasn't the best of everything, but, his family had a lot of money. So they came through and cleared out all my stuff with nice stuff that was better. And I didn't have any of my own stuff. Like even my car, I bought myself a brand new car at 20 when I got pregnant with Jazz, because I knew that I needed a good one. And they said, yeah, you know what, you need a bigger car, sell your car. Sold my car. The money was used elsewhere. And then they gave me like a $400 Ford Falcon, right? The boot didn't even close, right? And so we had to unplug the boot light because otherwise the battery kept going flat. And I'm like, on the side of the road, always getting stuck with a flat battery with children in my car, right? So I didn't have anything of my own. So when Arbonne came in, I had no money. I couldn't even afford to buy the product. I loved the product. I actually just bought a foundation, like a mineral powder foundation. And one other thing, I can't remember what it was, but something very, very small. And Trudy gave me a sample of what was then called the Nutriment C, but is now the RA9. And I loved it. And I told her how much I loved it, but I said to her, I really can't afford to buy it. Like I don't have any money. I physically don't have any money. I was paying the bills myself, mostly. It basically as well, I was ringing up the bills company every single month, like everyone, electricity, gas, whatever. Can I please have an extension? And some of my bills are backed up like 3 months, honestly. So I literally could not afford to buy the skincare. So I loved it though. So she, when she gave me the sample, my skin really changed. And I was actually one day at the gym after using that sample for a week. One of my members come up to me and goes, what makeup are you wearing today? Your skin looks amazing from down there. Like I worked at a big gym. Like I'd have 80 to 100 people in my classes. So it was like a really massive studio. So apparently from back and me on stage, it looked, my makeup looked good, but turns out I wasn't wearing any makeup, right? And so I went, oh, okay, this stuff is really good. So I said to Trudy, you know what? I really want it. And, for me, I didn't, like I said, I didn't have anything of my own. I didn't have very good self-worth, especially you can imagine how much worse it was getting with the relationship that I was in as well. So I kind of felt like I selfishly wanted to buy something for myself, right? So I said, this is what I'm going to do. When I get my tax check, I'm going to buy the skincare set. And so I bought the skincare. It was funny. When I got my tax check, I did just that. It was hilarious though, because I was one of those people that, you know, that freak us out. You know, when clients get on and sign themselves up, you're like, oh, hang on, did they put it under my ID number? Like I did that. So I got online and she rang me to follow me up literally 35 minutes after I'd ordered. She goes, oh, just checking how you're going, you know, let me know when you want to put in your skincare order. And I went, oh, I did it. And she's like, oh, what? And I said, oh yeah, I got onto your website that was on your card and I just bought it. And she was obviously happy in the end that I did it correctly, but I was one of those people that just jumped on and did it by myself. And anyway, from that point on, everyone was commenting on my skin. And so I was telling everybody about this Arbonne stuff, right? Everybody. And Trudy was saying to me, obviously prospecting me for the business. And I kept saying, nah, don't have time for that. I don't want to do that. I didn't even know what that was. I thought it was like, and I don't mean to say this in a condescending way, but I thought I'd have to do like Nutrimetics parties or drop off catalogs like Avon. And I was like, no, I'm not doing that, because I knew that, you know, in high school we used to have Nutrimetics parties and stuff. And then, you know, my mum would get the poops because she'd be like, oh, I don't know what parties at home. So like I had this kind of stigma in, oh, I don't want to have to do, you know, these parties or drop off. And I was like, no, I'm not doing it. But I was referring literally everyone. So I'd ring her up and I'd say, oh, can you send a sample to my mum? Here's her address. Can you send a sample to my friend? Here's their address. Can you send a sample to my other friend? Here's their address, right? So you can see what I was doing already. I was already doing the business without getting paid for it. And she kept saying, do you want to do Arbonne? And I was like, no. Like, I'm telling you, this went on for 6 months. 6 months, literally. So never give up on people either. And maybe it's just sometimes something that you say. And this is what Trudy said to me that made the difference for me. And she didn't know any of the stuff that was going on in my life. But this is what made the difference for me. She goes, you know what? I'm just going to ask you one more time. Because, you know, that friend you had, her name was Brooke. It was a girl that used to work at the gym. And she goes, Brooke actually gave me a phone number of one of her friends who loved the product. And then that friend hosted an event for me. And at that event, you know, I sold 7 Nutriment sets, which was RA9. And I got this client off it. And then this person wants to become a consultant. And then and I was like, oh yeah, that's nice. Like, good for you. Like, you know, that's what but then she said, and because of that one person that you told it and all of those sales that I got and all that, just this month, I made $700 off that one person that you told. And I was like, and she goes, and that could have been your money because you actually did that work for me. You did that work you literally did that work for me. And I was like, oh. And so that kind of, for me, now we all know that money isn't everything, right? It's not, it doesn't make people happy. It doesn't give us fulfillment. It gives us what we need in order for us to get fulfillment though. So it's like, it's important, like oxygen. We need it to survive. But for me at that time, I needed it. And I was kind of desperate for it, right? Because firstly, I couldn't pay the bills. And secondly, I was at the point where I was, you know, I wanted to get out of the relationship, but I was frightened and all these things. And I also didn't have the money to be able to do that. I couldn't. So I went, you know what? I'm going to just give this a go. And what I said was, if I can just make $300 a month, that'll be cool, because then I'll be able to just like one less bill I'd have to ask for an extension for. But in my heart, I truly knew that I wanted to make a hell of a lot more than that. But I also looked at Trudy, like Rachel looked at the MVPs and went, I'm nothing like her. I mean, if you know Trudy, you see her. She's always glammed up. She's got her high heels on. She always wears beautiful makeup. Her hair's always like, she's perfectly immaculate, right? And she was a paramedical therapist, so she knew everything about skincare, and I like knew nothing about skin, and she knew all the science and whatever. And because remember at the time they didn't have nutrition in Arbonne either, so you know, for me it was very different. So I was like, thinking, okay, well, I'm nothing like her. I'll just want to make $300 a month. So my next tip is for you, please be honest with yourself. Never lie to yourself and really put it out there to the world. Because guess what? I made that $300 a month. I made up to $600-700 a month for like a year, like literally until I admitted it to the universe and told it exactly what I wanted, right? So I say to you right from the day one, really understand that there is no glass ceiling, and whatever you say, you'll hit or just below or around that kind of money. Or, you know, so if you wouldn't you rather just, a lot of the time people miss out on their goals just by a little bit. Let's be honest. Would you rather miss out on just getting $300 a month, or would you rather miss out on just getting $10,000 a month? Like, you know, there's a massive difference. So if you're going to just miss out on hitting your goal, which one is it going to be? The $1 million a month or $100 a month? So you've got to be really honest about that. I think that's a really, really important thing that I wish I knew then, and I learned along the way as we moved. So what happened then was I started making that kind of money, and I went to Trudy's car presentation about 6 months into my business. And I remember I brought my ex-husband with me to the car presentation. I was always on edge, by the way, because by this point he was, you know, you'd only have to have one drink of alcohol and it would, that drug-induced psychosis would just show itself like no tomorrow. So I would sit in the corner and babysit and hide. And I remember sitting in there, you know, babysitting him in the corner at the car presentation. And I said, oh, that's so cool. Like, you know, that she's got that car. And he said to me, well, that's good for her, but, you know, it basically how I was already feeling. But look at her. She knows everything about it. She's always, you know, you're my cute little wife. She's like this, like, model lady. And she's, you know, she doesn't have to do anything else. She doesn't work. She doesn't do another job in the day. You do. So you're not going to get one. That's what he said to me. And I also have this kind of little bit of, I think at that point I'd sort of grown some balls, like, to be honest. And I've always had, like, I don't like people telling me what to do. I never have. And it's not that, I think I've always just kind of been like, I follow what my intuition. I've always been very intuitive. So when people tell me what to do, it doesn't work for me at all. So even when I train my team, I don't ever tell them what to do. I say, what do you think you should do? And then I kind of guide them and give them advice and get them to answer the question themselves in the way that I know is going to work for them. But I never tell them what to do. And the truth is, no one's unconscious does. No one's unconscious wants to be told what to do, because your unconscious number one job is to keep you safe. No one else, not even your children, you. And it doesn't want to be told what to do. So, you know, when people say to me the word should, you have to, I'm just like, should? According to who? Like, do you know what I mean? Anyway, so when he said that to me, I was in my head, I thought, you know what? Effing watch me. That's what I thought. I thought, you know, can tell me what I can and can't do. I'm sick of this, because obviously I was in this relationship that I was always consistently being put down and told. Like, I remember at the gym, he'd say to me, well, when are you going to get a real job? And in actual fact, fast forward a little bit, I stopped becoming a trainer and presenter for Les Mills because he was so, I guess, jealous about it. Because he would say to me, you just go there because you want to hang around gym boys, and make me feel guilty for doing my job because there was lots of fit people around, because of his own insecurities, right? So already it was like, I pretty much changed. I didn't even know who I was in this relationship. And, you know, even my dad said to me one day, like, after he knew all this other stuff went on, because I didn't admit it, by the way, for years. None of my family knew that I was just, like, what is wrong with Blair? She's always just stuck at home with Luke. But they had no idea about the other stuff. And my dad, when he found out, he said to me one time, like, why wouldn't you just defend yourself? Knowing what I was like, you know, I was a fitness trainer. I used to teach boxing. I used to actually teach kickboxing and everything. And he'd be like, why wouldn't you defend yourself? And it's because I became a different person. I was afraid. I had low self-esteem. Anyway, so from that point when he said that to me about the car, I was like, you watch me. And also around the exact same time, I went and got a full-time job. Interestingly enough, I didn't actually when I finished uni, I didn't get a job. I didn't go and work as a teacher, because what also happened, because financially abusive, he wanted me to have a job that paid the most money so that we could buy a house, right? And so coming out of teaching, it was like $45,000 a year first year. Like, it was like nothing. And it goes up each year. But I was like, okay, well, I just need to find a job that makes the most money. And, you know, it's so funny what you can put out there to the universe. And because I was like, okay, give me something that's going to make me the most money. And I applied for this job, right? I actually applied for 3 jobs, and I got all 3 of them. And each one went up a little bit in income. But I applied for this job just randomly at the St. George Bank, like a real basic job, but it paid more than a teaching job. And I thought, well, at least at least I'll have more money, and I don't have an experience in finance, but I just need something that pays the most money, and I know something's coming to me. Because by this point, you got to understand, you got to remember, I'd already started a lot of personal development in Arbonne, which is how I also grew some balls, because I started to really work a lot on personal growth in the business. So I think for me, one of the biggest things I got, I knew in my heart I wanted to make more money, but I also knew in my heart I wanted to become myself again and shine. And I think that's one of the biggest things that happens in Arbonne. Always remember that. Never ever stop your personal growth, because your business will never outgrow you. If you stop your personal growth, then that's where your business is going to stop. And I actually learned something from my dad as well. One of the best things he ever said to me when I was an instructor, and it kind of filters through to all aspects of your life. He said to me, you know what? I want you to know something, because I remember he used to say to me, when I became a Les Mills trainer, of course I got maybe a little bit, no, I was never up myself, but maybe just to my dad, I get a little bit cocky. Oh, look out, Dad, I'm gonna, like joking, like competitive. I'm gonna have more people in my class than you, or whatever. And he said to me, I just want you to know something. And my dad's one of the most humble men you would ever meet. Like, he's never, ever been cocky. He's very highly regarded. He's still in the industry, even though he doesn't even really do it anymore. He said to me, Blair, you know what? You're only ever as good as your last class. And that's the truth. It's the same as Arbonne. You're only ever as good as your last presentation. You're only ever as good as the last person that you actually coached and guided. I mean, you're not ever too good to help and grow somebody else. And your business is only ever as good as your personal growth level. So utilize that as well. So anyway, I went and got this. I was growing some balls, putting some good stuff out there to the universe, and I thought, I just want the best job that I could get, and not the best, the one that paid the most money. I didn't even care what it was, to be honest. So interestingly enough, I applied for this job at St. George Bank, and then I got a call from the head of banking, ACT New South Wales, in the entire St. George, like the top dog, right? And it was so random. And he asked me, he goes, I have your resume on my desk for this job at the branch, and I'd like you to come in and talk to me. And I was like, oh, okay. Because they give you like a phone interview, and they ask you all these psychological questions or whatever. So we obviously saw a lot more in me than just working on a counter or something like that. So I went in to have this meeting with him, and then he also put me through this psych test that you have, like a lot of companies do this, right? So it was this like computer test, and you had to answer questions. Anyway, he called me back and he said, I need you to come back in. And he said, your answers on your questions were quite amazing. You're quite intelligent, and which I've always been told that I have, but I never thought that I was, and I guess that was just a self-esteem thing. And I think it's just because I absorb information really quite easily. He said, but I want to offer you another job. And it's actually quite a high level job, but we're going to train you to do it, because I think because of your personality and because of, how your brain works, I think that you will be amazing. So anyway, turns out I got this job as an account executive in the corporate banking, above like 100 other people that were already working in the bank that applied. And I was managing the accounts for business loans. Like, I was literally managing all the business loan accounts and managing all their accounts, and literally like their personal banker, and doing all their loans and approving it. So that's kind of what happened. And what happened then though, remember I told you I made like $600 or $700, the $300 to $600 for like months, like a year. It was when I started at the bank that everything changed. And here's why. When I was at university, I was super busy, right? But if anyone that's been to university, if you have to skip a lecture and go and do something else, and you can always catch up later. And so I could do that. Like, I could go and pick up my kids or go and watch them at assembly or whatever and catch up later. That was fine. Can't do that when you go in corporate banking, especially when you work in the city and you have to drive there. So you got to leave at 7 a.m., drop the kids to daycare and before school care, stay there all day, try and teach you a couple of gym classes in your lunch break so you're not, losing that part of your life. And then getting home 6, 7 at night, cooking dinner like really super fast, and then going and doing the band practice or whatnot. I had no time. But I had money now. So here's what I did. I traded time for money. That's what I did. So I used to have no money, but more time. Even though I was busy, let's be honest, I still had more time because I could move stuff around. Now, I had money, but no time. And this is what I thought, what the hell am I doing? I hear all these things in Discover Arbonne's all the time about, having time, freedom, and money, and I can have bloody both. And so from that driving force of wanting to earn the car, because of what he said to me, from realizing that I had no time, and my daughter's crying because she was the first person to be dropped off at before school care and the last person to be picked up. And guess what else happened a few times because of his you know, how his brain was working. I'd get calls from more than once, and from after school care saying, we close at 6 and at 6:15 and he hasn't come to pick your daughter up yet. Like, bad. So she'd be like stuck there. It was horrible. And so you can imagine how she felt as well. So I went, what am I doing? So this is what I did. I worked my butt off in Arbonne, and I used every single lunch break that I had, every single spare minute that I had, and on my weekends to do Arbonne. Yes, I was busy, super busy. But I knew that that short-term sacrifice was going to make me long-term gain. So I said to my daughters, you know what, Mummy's going to go and do stuff on the weekends sometime, and it's so that we can do all these fun, so that I can be home with you and you don't have to go to after school anymore. We can do fun things and whatever. And that's exactly what I did. And that was actually hard and made the relationship worse because actually now that I was making money, the relationship became worse because all of a sudden now Blair was the breadwinner, and that wasn't very, you know, good for the relationship from his perspective. And I worked my butt off. I did. And I was scared because I had to leave the girls at home with him. But within about 4 months of starting that job, well, realizing from that point, I'd gone regional vice president. So I went from area manager at the start of that job right through to regional vice president, replaced my corporate income. And that was working full time and being super busy because I used every second around that. And yeah, exactly, Rach, because I decided. And my paycheck was hitting like 10 grand a month already because I was a bonusing RVP really quite quickly. And I'd replace my corporate income, and because they'd given me a contract for a year, I stuck at the year because I'd made that commitment to the company. But after a year, I'll fast forward really now. After a year, I had gone IVP, replaced my corporate income, managed to leave my ex-husband bravely enough, and bought my own house. So going from having no money and being in that horrible relationship to getting away, taking my daughters to a safe place. There's more to the story. I remember, I'll just tell you one thing as well. I actually got, because I was a singer, I put myself into Arbonne's Got Talent. They still have that. And it never used to be where you used to sing fun songs on stage. You actually, when you got chosen, you got to sing the national anthem of your country at the opening of GTC. So the year I got chosen, I got to sing the national anthem of Australia at Las Vegas opening, and backstage he assaulted me right before I went on. And so this was like the beginning of the big stuff. And when I got home from that, because guess what, I was successful now, and this was just before I went region, because I actually went region on the plane coming home from GTC, by the way. It was my plane ticket happened to be on close night, and I gave my sister my ID and I said, this is my ID, I just need you to make sure I'm over 40,000. Do whatever. And so like I was doing everything on the plane, and when I got off the plane, everyone knew that I went region before I did because I was on the plane at the end of month. But when I got, but after that, because all of a sudden I became successful now, it got really horrible, and the kids were threatened and things like that. So I managed to push all that back, go RVP, have my own house. And then the very next year, guess what I did? I took my girls to Disneyland. I took them to Vegas with me. My whole entire family came. My mom was doing up at the time, my sister, my dad, my brothers, all my siblings. We came as a big family holiday. My dad looked after the girls and took them out to do stuff while I was in GTC. And then we took them to Disneyland. Now, if you were rewound 18 months before that, I couldn't even afford to drive them to the beach, which is an hour and 45 minutes away from where I live. Because I didn't have the petrol money, literally. So it's pretty cool how Arbonne works. It's pretty amazing. And and then obviously everything started to grow and flourish. We're almost at the end of the story, but I'm going to give you some tips because there's some other things that happen, some other hurdles that happen for me that I want you to learn from. Okay. So I'm sharing this with you because I'm hoping that you're going to learn some things from these. Like firstly, the tip about not squashing how much you actually want to make, making sure that you really put it out there, never letting go of your personal growth. But so basically I was with my girls on my own at home. Life was awesome. Quit my job. You know, was RVP, blah, blah, blah. Then I actually met my now husband, who's complete polar opposite. This is like a third time lucky, right? So I actually met him through Arbonne, interestingly enough. Now, this is not a guarantee, right? So we don't put it on the success plan, you know, includes a husband. But I did meet him through Arbonne because one of my friends who was a consultant at the time, and nutrition had just come out, and I was studying nutritional therapy after that. So during all this process, I'll just quickly go over this. During this process of me leaving my husband, I started to get like a little bit sick and got a bit anxious, and you know, and so I started really looking after my health. So I started learning nutritional therapy. I also did my training in NLP, timeline therapy, hypnotherapy, and lots of other sort of holistic, you know, sort of mental well-being as well as nutritional well-being for myself, really, and you know, so that I could help others. But she asked me to come and meet her friend who was a single dad because she knew nothing about nutrition, and obviously he wanted to learn about nutrition and wanted to make some extra money. And that's how I met Dave through Arbonne. And what happened was, though, I was really moving. Like, I'd promoted out like 2 extra RVPs that year, and I was well on my way to NVP. I was in qual for NVP, and guess what I did? I met Dave and went, yeah, this is cool. I became comfortable right where I was. And so this is the next thing I want you to really know, is that you always have to keep the momentum going until you're 12 nations wide, like Cecilia Stoll. Always keep momentum going, because what most people do, 90% of people in business do, is in this business, is when they promote to a level, they get what we call like a DM hangover or an AM hangover. And I got an RVP hangover, right? So I was like, yeah, cool, I'm having a rest. Met Dave. It was fun. We got to hang out more because I wasn't working, you know. So I kind of just like, yeah, I mean, I guess I sort of just let Arbonne do its thing, kept recruiting and stuff, but didn't really keep the momentum going as it was before. And what's nice about this part, though, was that at the time Dave's dad was still alive, but he had just got his second round of cancer. So he'd been in remission for many years. And Dave and I, after a few months, obviously when you know, and we'd had those mature adult discussions about what we both wanted, because we were both, you know, had kids already. And it was really important for both of us to make sure that the kids weren't coming into a relationship, because his relationship prior wasn't very kind either. So, you know, making sure that the kids it was going to work, right? And that the kids were first priority and everything was going to work. So when we knew, and he moved with me, and his dad got really sick. And what was really good about this, awesome about Arbonne, was he said to me, I just don't know what I'm going to do because so my Dave's a teacher actually, and he goes, because I'm working full time and my dad hasn't got much time left, and I just feel so guilty because when he was in his ex-marriage, he didn't spend a lot of time with his family, bit like how I was kind of, you know, stuck in the house, same kind of thing but in a different way, right? So he goes, I feel like I've just wasted so much time with dad. It's time I can never get back. I want to spend time with my dad. I don't want, you know, I want to be able to spend time. And when his dad got sick, it sort of made him think about him. And I don't want, you know, I want to be able to spend time with my children, because now my dad's gone and I feel like I haven't had any time with them, and I don't want my kids to feel like that about me, and so on. And you know what I said? I said, you know what? That's okay. Then quit. And he's like, what are you talking about? And I said, well, you can just go and leave without pay, right? You can take some leave. Just go and leave without pay. Spend this time with your dad, because I can cover us both, because I could. I was already covering my own house and stuff. So this is what's awesome about Arbonne, was that, you know, I was able to do that for him, and he was able to spend all that time with his dad at the hospice till every last breath. We actually ended up selling my house and buying his family home, which is where we live now, because it was a super big home, of his parents, because it had a granny flat in it, so that his parents could live in the granny flat, and we could help his mum when his dad passed, but also his dad didn't want to stay in the hospice. So kind of like it really worked. And this is because of Arbonne. Like, we live in a suburb in Canberra that's where one of the most expensive suburbs. Now, and I'm not saying that to brag, but I could never even afford to pay my rent before, right? So, yes, it's an old house, and yes, it needs renovating, but we could afford to do that and look after his mum. And Dave spent every single second of his dad's last breath until his dad actually passed away in our granny flat, because he could, because of Arbonne. And he would never have been able to do that if it wasn't for Arbonne. And then obviously it helped. Dave was able to look after his mum thereafter, and we were able to help her. We were both home and help her through her grieving process too. But I got the RBP hangover. So I actually just, even when, that stuff was never gone. I mean, you're always grieving, but when the bulk of it was gone, we just kept hanging out. I didn't want him to go back to work because I liked his company too much. We're having too much fun. We were home together all the time, right? It was like all the time. Who gets to do that? Just be together all the time. And we love each other's company, honestly. And I got the hangover, but then we had already discussed that we wanted to have a baby. So as most of you probably know, we have a little son, Hendrix. He's just turned 4, and David actually had a vasectomy, right? So we had to spend thousands of dollars getting that reversed to have a baby. And then he actually said to me, okay, the money in the bank account's starting to kind of go now because not only at this time was, he wasn't working. My ex-husband he found a new girlfriend who decided that it was a good idea for him to take me to court to try and get more custody of the children, or custody, even of Jasmine, who wasn't even his, the older one. So here I am paying hundreds, I'm talking $100,000 here to court, and all that kind of stuff. So I went, oh shit, I better start building some Arvo momentum again, because the money's going to start to run out, and I don't want to get back into that place where we can't afford it. So he said, you know what, Blair, we need to go nation before we have Hendrix. So I got pregnant with Hendrix, and I'd been already in nation qual, by the way. And it took me 3 to 6 months to really build up the momentum again, because that's what it does. We don't start seeing it's delayed gratification in Arvo. You see the work you're doing now, you'll see the results in 90 days time. So this is why it's important for you guys as well, not to go, oh, I've been working so hard for the month and I'm just not seeing the money come in yet. Don't stop. It's like you've got to keep building the momentum. So it took me that time to really build the momentum back up. It's like, if your cart's rolling, even if your cart rolling down a hill, if it's rolling and there's an uphill, it's going to start to roll itself uphill. So it's a lot easier to get to the top. Whereas if the cart's not rolling, you've got to start pushing uphill again. That's why we don't want to have these promotion hangovers, because that's exactly what happened to me. And I had to really work my butt off. And yes, we managed to go nation, Hendrix was born in February. We went nation in the September. So before he was born. But the tip that I wanted to give you there is don't do these hangovers. Honestly, the momentum is so important to keep going. Yes, these promotions are amazing, but really they're just letters in the grand scheme of your big goal. So really think of your big goal and what your whole vision and your whole purpose is, and then just look at these other things as baby steps. Yep, cool, tick that one off, next. Tick that one off next. They're just letters, in all honesty, because you could be a RVP that makes $10,000 a month, but you could be one that's struggling to even maintain, right? And I know, trust me, because I always maintained my region, but there's many people in my team, and even when I first went nation, I struggled to maintain a little bit, because then I kind of half almost got the hangover because I just had a baby, and I was like, oh, I better not do this again, right? Because I'd learned from the first time. So they're just little steps. So just never be stuck by the letters. They actually mean nothing. It's just like the word no. They're just 2 letters. N-O. Who cares? Whatever, and I think that's another tip that I want to give you. Don't be hung up on the word no. It's just there's multiple meanings to no. No thanks, not now. No, it's not no to you. It might be no to the product. It might be, I don't understand what you're talking about. I have a perception of this. It's not real. It's just a word. Just like the word lemon, for example, has multiple meanings. It's a color. It's a fruit. It can be a dud, it's just a word. So you never get hung up on these letters like no, or even the promotion letters. They're just letters. So keep them steps along the way. So yeah, basically we went nation, and from there just always continued to grow. And what I really love about Arvo as well, even though I learnt from the hangover thing, Dave went back to work for a little while too, while I was going nation, just to build up the bank account as well. we actually got to bring him home again. So he didn't have to miss out on Hendrix's first steps. Like, you know, my daughter, Jasmine, my first one when I was 20, she went to daycare at 7 weeks old. She was the youngest person they've ever had at daycare. You know, my son has just finished daycare. Oh, we sent him 2 days a week just so I could get some Arbonne done for the perks of Arbonne. He's just finished at that daycare. I've been going to that daycare for 14 years. He just finished on Friday. That's so sad because my daughter's just turned 14. But, you know, both my daughters were at daycare from like so young. My daycare center send me videos of Sienna crawling for the first time. So that was, you know, can you imagine how that feels? So when Dave got to enjoy that with me, with Hendrix, both of us together, that's absolutely amazing. So, you know, really, I think some of the biggest things here is like have gratitude. Don't get hangovers. Don't be hung up on letters. And I also look at things now in a completely different way. And I didn't tell you this part, but when I first started dating Dave, because I had always been so strong and just trying to get on with it, I actually got really bad anxiety, like really bad, to the point where because Dave plays ice hockey professionally, so he would be away playing in a different state, and I'd have to call my mum because I physically couldn't get up off the floor to cook my children dinner. That's how anxious I was. Like, I thought that everything was going to kill me, because I was like this is when I was going through court as well. So I was like uber anxious. So, and the Healthy Living program and me learning about nutritional therapy and changing my gut health actually changed that completely. I did go on medication, anxiety medication, for 6 months. And but for me, that was only temporary. And it was just so I could physically get up off the floor. But honestly, I know I said I wasn't going to talk about nutrition, but just on a side note, it's amazing when you look at your whole mind, body, spirit stuff, where Arbonne comes from in and out of health. It actually can. And not that we can claim this, but it actually can honestly change some of these issues around. Like, I was on the way to autoimmune disease and everything from the stress. I had really severe leaky gut, which is obviously not a reason probably why I had anxiety, but all of this because of Arbonne. So, I mean, Arbonne is amazing in so many ways. So what I just want to finish with and give you to take away are some extra things, just when it comes to mindset, because, you know, all these things that I've been through, I could have made them all as excuses, and sometimes I did try, but then I would, because I already had that strong personality, I would be like, no, you know what? And I think I had that driving force from the day someone died, and I knew that I was going to have a baby at 20 years old. It was like I grew this driving fire of, I just need to do better all the time, right? And then of course I have Dave, who's super supportive, but he also pulls me up on my bullshit. So he was like, you know what, babe, in his nice, very kind, loving way, would pull me up on stuff. So all of these things, I want to give you some final tips that I've learned that may help you as well, other than the ones I've already given you. So the first is, excuses are just excuses. They're just lies that you tell to yourself. I would make the excuse all the time. I could have made the excuse at first, I'm so busy, but that's a lie, because we all have the same amount of times. Yes, I was busy, but I just didn't want to dedicate any time to Arbonne, right? So they're just lies you tell to yourself. And we do this all the time. And lies, we tell ourselves lies in a negative way. And so this comes from another perspective, from I guess a personal growth thing for you, and affirmations and limiting beliefs that you might have, because we tell ourselves lies all our life. So obviously now you know that I've done all these different trainings on mindset. From 0 to 7 is where we absorb most of the information that we learn, right? And then from 7 to 14 is where we start to really mimic it and try and fit into society. And then, like, most of this stuff we pick up when we're young. So we lie to ourselves. So if we hear a teacher say that work wasn't good enough, even once in between 0 to 7, we start to tell ourselves that story. So even if you don't physically say to yourself all the time, I'm not good enough, your unconscious tells you that, right? And then sometimes you'll pick up something, we say things like, I'm no good at speaking in public. That's bullshit. Sorry. It's because you haven't done it yet. And it's because someone told you weren't good at something else, and now you think you're not going to be good at it, or someone laughed at you in a school speech. Like, it's crap. Everyone is good at speaking in public if they practice. No one's good at anything if they don't practice, right? right? It's like no one can drive a car straight away. It's just like, it's bullshit. So we tell ourselves lies all the time that we start to believe, and then we become. Because if you told yourself, for example, I'm not very good at speaking in public often enough, then the first time you get up, you'd be so nervous, you'd stumble on your words, and you'd be like, see, I told you I'm not good at speaking in public. When that's not true. It's just because you told yourself that often enough that you believed it. So here's the next tip I want to give you. Start not lying to yourself, but start telling yourself things that aren't there yet in a positive way. If you're going to lie to yourself, you may as well do it in a way that's going to serve you. So start telling you things. I'm a national vice president. Even though you're not yet, doesn't matter. Who cares? Your brain will start to believe that you are, and you'll start to actually behave like you are, and until it becomes just like the way you've done it to yourself negatively all your life. So this is some things that I use for affirmation and limiting beliefs. I say it as if now, and I'm already grateful for it. So when I do my gratitude, I say things like, I'm grateful for the 4 national vice presidents that I have in my team direct to me this year. I'm one wide, right? That's at the moment. But when I tell myself something often enough, your behavior changes. And the reason why I suggest you do it when you're doing your gratitude, I hope you all do gratitude, is because everything is attached to human emotion. Now, if any of you are VPs on here, you would have heard me speak at, or VPs, you would have heard me speak at VP Retreat. I spoke a little bit about this, how your mind works, and how when you take in information, you make an internal representation of yourself, and then that then creates an emotion, which creates a behavior, which changes your physiology, which changes your results, and things like that, right? I think my training, by the way, Rachel, is online for MVPs. You can download it off the source so you can share it. But basically that's how it works. So everything's attached to emotion, right? So when you do it via gratitude, you do it via emotion. So when I think about my 4 nations wide, I really think about it till I get tears in my eyes, and I'm so proud of these people that don't even exist in my team yet, till I actually feel so much gratitude in my tummy. Because when you attach things to emotion, that's when your brain thinks it's real, because your brain doesn't know the difference between what's real and what's not. So when we get emotional about something negative, your brain thinks it's real. You're telling yourself all this shit that's not even true. Sorry about my language, but it is. We're just like, oh, this is so bad. And then everyone around you is going, what are you talking about? It wasn't that bad. But you don't see it because you're so emotionally involved in it. So become emotionally involved in it in a gratitude, a positive way. Okay, because this is where your brain starts to really believe it's real, and actually it changes your neurology and your neurological pathways. It actually starts to think that it's a memory, a future memory, but it thinks that it's a memory, right? And the more you recall your goals and your gratitude and the things that you want to be grateful for, so put your goals in your gratitude is what I'm trying to say to you. The more you recall them, the stronger the memory becomes, the future memory becomes in your brain, and the more it thinks it's real. It's like if you had a memory, say you've got a sister and she reminded you of something funny that happened when you were younger, and you're like, oh yeah, I half remember that. And then she's obviously thought about it a lot, so she remembers a lot more than you. You're like, oh, that's right. So see, the more you recall it, the more you remember, and the more real it becomes again. And it's the same with your goals. So when you're doing your goals, attach them to gratitude, attach them to emotion, and think about them every single day with emotion. Like it's a way of visualization. You visualize, but you can't just visualize. It doesn't work if you just think about stuff. You've got to think about it and visualize with emotion. So that's my next thing for you, is to really make sure that you attach emotion to everything. And then my last thing for you, because I know you've been on here for an hour, is make sure you have a why and a vision. They're 2 different things, okay? Now, a lot of the time, the mistake we make, and I teach this to my team all the time, is we think that our vision is our why. So we come into R1 and we say, and we keep our vision really small. So we go, my why is because I want my husband to retire from his job. That is not your why. That is not your why at all. That's part of your vision. And here's the reason. Again, from a brain perspective point of view, remember I told you your brain's number 1 job is to keep you safe. It only cares, yes, you care about other people, but my point is it actually looks after your spirit and your body. It doesn't actually look after anyone else's. So your why has to be selfish. It has to be why you're really doing Arbonne. Maybe you want your husband to quit your job, but maybe the truth is you don't have any friends. You don't know who the hell you are. because maybe I didn't. When we become mums, sometimes we lose our identity because we become so-and-so's mum or so-and-so's wife or whatever. That's your why. You have to make it about you, because otherwise you have no reason to move. It's like your why is like your petrol in your car. If you don't put fuel in your car, it's not even going to start. And your why has to be about you. Otherwise, it's not even going to ignite your unconscious at all, right? Your vision is cool, but that's cool. So are dreams. Your brain has cool dreams too. It doesn't understand. You've got to make your why selfish. Your vision, however, is inclusive for your everybody else in the greater good. So your vision includes, I want my husband to quit your job. I want to be home for my children. Your vision also needs to include your team, what you want your team to look like, and think big. That's your vision, right? That's where you're going. But your why has to be something that really is inside your heart and inside your gut. Okay, so that's something that I want to tell you. It's really super important. Your why, you really got to think about that. So please don't lie to yourself. What is your why? What is it? Why the hell are you doing it? And be honest with it. Be honest about it. Why am I really doing this? Who am I? I'm just using your names because I can see you on the screen. Who am I? Who's Danielle? Who's Alicia? Who's Kirsty? Who's Rachel? Who am I? And why am I doing this for me? That's what you've got to think about. And then your vision is inclusive. And included in your vision, make sure that it includes fulfillment, not just achievement, because they're two different things. Achievement is like, I became an MVP. Woo! That's an achievement, but it doesn't mean you're going to be filled. There's rich people out there that have tons of money and that doesn't make them fulfilled. Robin Williams is a prime example. Massive success, loads of money, committed suicide because he had no fulfillment. Fulfillment comes from how you serve others. So please include in your vision how you're going to serve the greater good and how you're going to serve others, because that's where true fulfillment comes from. That's why humans are put on this earth. So make sure that your vision includes not only achievement, but it includes fulfillment as well. And then that is truly going to help you to start to manifest and know exactly where you're going in Arbonne. Because if you don't know why, and if you don't know your vision, then how the hell does the universe know what to give you, or what people to attract into your team? It doesn't know. It's got no idea. So remember, your why is about you. Your vision's about the whole, and it's got to include not only achievement, but fulfillment as well, which is serving the greater good and serving others.